Yeah.
Before we get started, if I can get y'all shut up for a second. Is it your birthday?
Yes, sir, it is. It happens this day every year.
Since we're about the same, I just hope you keep having them if you'll hold back.
I will keep having
That's,
it. I feel great about it.
and as for a birthday gift, he gets to be at the front of the line. Mr. Bullock, you begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 367 is the department bill. I mentioned it this morning. In an administrative order, the Department of Agriculture doesn't have the ability under current law to require that person that they may take civil action against to have a surety bond as part of the penalty, and this would just give them the ability to have a surety bond. That's SB 367.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bullock? No question, Mr. Bullock. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Y'all, just to get everybody up to date, you're working off that piece of paper, the yellow piece of paper. And the blue piece of paper. For those of you on the wall, if you turned in something as late as Wednesday, it won't be on that calendar until tomorrow. And it can move from this calendar to whatever comes out of my mouth later on. Mr. Ligon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. We have, again, two bills on the blue sheet that I'm working off of to consider. First is Senate Bill 464, and this creates a one-day shore-based fishing license that is to fish only off of piers in the ocean. It's a saltwater license, and that license would cost $5. We're doing this because tourists don't want to pay the $20 fee for a 3-day non-resident fishing license. So hopefully it would help out some of our small businesses that sell bait and tackle on the coast. And then dealing with some crabbing legislation, we're increasing the penalties for stealing crabs from commercial crabber traps, and also some management at the request of the Department of Natural Resources will limit the outstanding crabbing licenses over a period of time through attrition to 100 outstanding licenses. And the crabbers are all supporting this. So then we have Senate Bill 62, which provides if we have a situation in the state where where there's a petition to set aside lands to create an Indian reservation for a gambling casino, then it makes it clear that the legislature would voice the opinion of the state as to whether that should or should not occur. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ligon, there's a couple of questions. Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Ligon, I went back and read after we had a few conversations this morning about this. Under 464,
yes,
we passed a bill earlier this year giving the commissioner the authority to set those rules and regs. Do we still need this after that piece of legislation? Is there something within here that's different?
Yes, sir. There are a couple things. One, first, it establishes that shore-based fishing license, and it establishes the shore-based fishing license for $5, and then with the crabbing, it increases the penalties in statute for stealing crabs out of a commercial crab trap.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Ligon, the question has arisen. It's a $5 for a one-day fishing license. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's for a saltwater shore-based fishing license.
We have a 3-day for $20, right?
Correct.
All right. If I were trying to beat the system, wouldn't I go get one $5 per day for 3 days?
Well, that would only allow you to fish off of a pier. With the $20 license, you can fish in any river, stream, off
Okay.
the pier, anywhere.
Believe it or not, that came up at lunch, and I thought I'd throw it at you just to
Yes.
see. I was going to beat the system and just do $5 for 3 days
Well, if
and fish off the pier,
you can fish off the pier, that's right.
and I'll stay out of your rivers.
Yes, sir. And that does not include a hunting license. Your 3-day license includes a hunting license as well.
You mean I'm going to shoot something with a silenced gun?
That's right. And
Y'all won't hear me if I do that, and I'd be proud of whatever I shot.
you could even put corn in the water.
Is that the same thing where we grow special deers that antlers are so big their heads won't stand up?
Well, I don't know about that.
Y'all just keep, this is true now, these are not lies. Y'all think they are, but they're not. Mr. Ligon, thank you. You've been here twice. You don't need to come back on these 2 bills anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I know which one you want, Mr. Golden. Come on down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Where's your sidekick, Maxwell? He didn't come with you?
I'm looking for him.
I am too, forgetting his name on this thing.
He's an outstanding human being.
Oh, okay. You're on.
Mr. Chairman, I understand it's on the yellow sheet, Senate Bill 402, and I was just here to answer any questions.
You're on the blue sheet.
Is it on the blue sheet? I'm sorry. Well, it's Senate Bill 402, the alternative investments for ERS that I addressed this morning. Be glad to answer any questions. I think, as I told you this morning, it's 5% cap over 5 years, 1% a year is the maximum it can go into it, help diversify the funds for ERS and strengthen the fund. And Mr. Chairman, I know that's a nutshell overview of it. Be glad to answer any questions.
You don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I bring before you today Senate Bill 416. It should be on your yellow sheet. It is amazing to me that this state has gone this long without this law in effect, Mr. Chairman. Well, I hope that we will be taking care of this quite shortly. I know it may be hard for you to imagine, but this has to do with pharmacy. It has to do with prescriptions. In these days, we now have electronic transmission of prescriptions. Doctors actually can send a prescription through email, through the internet, and pharmacists can receive those prescriptions. Many of you are familiar with what is referred to as a prior approval. Some insurance companies require a prior approval in order to cover a certain medication. This has to do with that prior approval process. The National Council of Prescription Drug Plans comes out with certain regulations, certain best practices, if you will, that they follow. They will shortly be coming out with those regulations, and what this bill simply says is that within 24 months of these regulations coming out, that the insurance companies will comply with that.
Are there any questions of Mr. Carter? Mr. Carter has 2 other bills, but he's going to come back on them. They're not on the yellow sheet, correct, Mr. Carter?
No, sir, they're not yet. And also, I'll be having probably about 4 more after that.
Don't push your luck, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and what a delight it is to be here today.
We've all been waiting. Mr. Shaw, it sure is nice to see a representative standing up amongst whatever that was out there with you.
Whatever that was. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here to ask for House Resolution 1561. It's just an urging resolution to ask our friends in Washington to please rethink their proposed changes dealing with our young adults working on farms. We want to make sure it stays like it has been and folks can learn the value of hard work on the farms in Georgia.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you all.
Mr. Mullis.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. What an honor it is to be before you this year.
It starts every year.
This is my first time this year.
I know that it starts.
I've missed you is all I can say. But
You can't climb those stairs out there?
well, not very well.
Okay.
I'm looking for the elevator at your office. I haven't found it yet. But
I'm
anyway,
looking forward to.
by the way, I let the House member in front of me a while ago. I figured I knew my place.
That was a wise move.
I did that. You can ask him. And in fact, my first bill I'd like to talk to you about is Senate Bill 110, which we've stripped out all that Senate language because it was no good, to create a bill for Representative Kip Smith so that we could help him with Kip Smith, so we can help him with his language or something he needed. And he gave me the permission to add some language for me as well. And this has to do with septic tanks and sewer systems, so it's a kind of a crappy situation we're dealing with here. I can be more graphic if you need me to, but it pretty well speaks for itself. It has some housekeeping to help small businesses, and also some sewer systems collect some of their fees from people who aren't paying their bill. Be glad to answer any questions or move on.
I like move on.
Okay.
Wait,
Senate Bill
whoa.
All right, I'm sorry.
The minority leader.
I'm afraid to wade into this, but
Wade into what?
however, we don't have it in our books.
Oh, no, we don't. I just explained that, and he wasn't here to hear that he can ask for it, but it's not on the yellow sheet, so he's got to wait another day before it to get on the yellow sheet, then to make it to the blue sheet.
We're going to play.
Oh, that's good. And I'll be glad to come back again for this outstanding committee.
I certainly want you back.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Senate Bill 489 is simply an oversight for the Trauma Commission. Not that they need it, but it wasn't put in the bill a couple years ago. And it gives the House Health and Human Services and the Senate Health and Human Services Committee some oversight in that organization. They're to report to them yearly. Be glad to move on.
Move on.
Senate Bill 492 deals with state purchasing regarding heavy equipment. Sometimes they've been excluded from multiple contracts, and this kind of levels the playing field and let all of them. In fact, Caterpillar wasn't allowed to bid in some, or wasn't allowed to be part of some of the bid packages. This will let everybody who makes that equipment in Georgia and others who sell it too to be part of the bid package. Also, it lowers the bidding field so that there's no hindrance of who can bid or not. Be glad to move on, Mr. Chairman. I only have one more to talk about today.
Yeah, you need to take that last one and study it real hard. Next one.
Okay. Senate Resolution 590 is simply urging the public Department of Public Schools or Public Education, or whatever they're called, Department of Education, to allow CPR classes to be taught in their health classes in school. Save lives. That's probably all I need to talk about
You
today.
sure do. I think you've left it well. Ready? Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Mr. Tippins, are you going to bring 4 up here too?
Sir,
Are you bringing 4 bills?
I'm bringing one bill. and it's
Thank
very
goodness. How about,
Senate Bill 371, it's on the blue sheet on the modified open rules. This has to do with community improvement districts in counties or municipalities who happen to own and operate a local airport. They can accept funds from the community improvement district for specified improvement projects. They cannot be forced to do it. They have to agree to it. But if the counties or municipalities agree to it, they can accept community improvement district funds for construction or improvement.
any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here to ask for 2 insurance bills that are on page 2 of the yellow sheet under Senate bills. One is Senate Bill 331, which is it's not a department bill, but it's supported by the insurance commissioner, and it simply clarifies the authority of title insurance companies to issue closing protection letters. It passed the Senate unanimously and out of Chairman Smith's insurance committee unanimously, and I would ask you to move it forward when you deem appropriate. The second, you want to move the second bill?
Yes.
Senate Bill 385 is the department's annual housekeeping bill. It has 4 or 5 different provisions clarifying the confidentiality of working papers and analysis collected by the department in connection with financial and market conduct exams, clarifying the authority of the insurance commissioner to exchange information with other state regulators and foreign regulators, clarifying provisions regarding notice for cancellation of policies, and clarifying provisions from a bill last year regarding the collection of premium taxes. It passed the Senate unanimously and out of Chairman Smith's committee unanimously.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, pleasure to be here today. Thank you very much. I'm here to ask for Senate Bill 361. It relates to the Joint Commission of Accreditation of Hospitals. Senate Bill 361 will update the Georgia law to comply with changes made with at the federal level by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, the organization that accredits hospitals. And I think it's a good piece of legislation, just updates the Georgia code.
Again, Mr. Miller, it's not on the yellow sheet, so you know it doesn't have a chance to do anything until it gets on there, right?
I realize that, sir.
All right. Thank you.
But you can't get a hit if you don't step up to the plate.
Well, you might can strike out.
I might strike out. I don't be called out on strikes.
Go down swinging. Are there any questions for Mr. Miller? Thank you.
I've got one more, Mr. Chairman, if that pleases you. That one is not on the list as well, but it's Senate Bill 225, and it has to do with the false reporting of a crime. A person guilty of an offense of transmitting a false report on the internet or electronically transmitting. This bill stems from a case that occurred in Hall County a few years ago where the individual went on the internet and claimed to have killed multiple individuals and buried them throughout South Georgia and North Florida. GBI, local law enforcement, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars searching for it. Clears that code up, sir.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, y'all listen up. This is Tuesday's calendar. One of many. Under the open rule, H.R. 1561, do I hear any opposition? Under modified open, SB 331, do I hear move?
Move.
Any opposition? That's where you'll start.